Hey folks, this is Ben back with you in the Midwest Model Shop. Okay, on today's episode of the Duchess of Kingston, we're going to make some major headway in the final construction of the ship. So, like I mentioned in the last video, what we're going to focus on is the assembly of the bowsprit. This is going to go together very quickly, and I'm not even going to show most of the steps except for one little gotcha, because that's all there is to it. Then we're going to go ahead and jump into some of the initial rigging, and I'm going to try to show you some of the things that I do to move forward, and then of course we have to wrap up the previous stage of the masts, which is the rigging that goes along with that. I want to talk briefly about three things here that are kind of key to this whole episode and moving forward. So first off is this book. It's called Rigging Period Ship Models, and it's by Lenarth Peterson. This book is incredible. Inside of it are drawings of a brig and how it is rigged. He's a model builder, and just like us, I'm assuming you're watching this, and he has questions, and I do too, like how do you secure these lines? How do you finish these lashings, if you will? How do you connect the ropes? How do you serve them? How do you put everything together? What's correct, or at least what looks good? And this book is going to be kind of the guide moving forward for all these things. It's a fantastic book. My only criticism is, while it shows how things are connected, it doesn't necessarily explain how to tie all knots. And there are some areas that I'm not totally clear on, but it's 95, 99, 95, 96% of the way there. It's a huge help. All right, the next thing is I have a serving machine. This I built. I made this thing myself. If you go to Siren Model Company, they'll sell you a kit of this thing. But basically, it's a series of gears with a handle that you turn, and what happens is you run a line through these two openings right here, and it spins the rope evenly on both ends, so you can grab a piece of line and serve it or wrap it around your main line. So you have like a piece of rope, and then you wrap a rope around it and you make a whole bunch of circles. It's very time consuming, and this tool speeds that up. The last thing I made is just a different version of your helping hand, your helper hand thing, which is, you've all probably familiar with this thing. But I find that this moves around a lot. I don't like the clamps, and I'm not happy with it. So I made this little guy up. This is just two heavy-duty paper clips. They're like really heavy-duty, screwed into these boards. There's a T-track so that it can slide back and forth. And what that allows me to do is grab anything I want, and especially with lines, stretch them out straight however I need to, lock it in a position so that they're taut and not going anywhere, and then I can work on them. So that's kind of a key tool, this whole thing. So that's it. That's all I wanted to talk about. Thank you to everyone on Patreon who has donated to our website and our little YouTube channel here and everything that's going on. I really do appreciate it. Nora and I appreciate it. And thank you to everyone who's visited our website, themidwestmodelshop.com, and made a purchase. We appreciate it too. If you like this episode, please don't forget to like and subscribe. We've got more stuff coming, and different kinds of ship builds and other models that we've started working on as well. Okay, I think that's it. Let's go ahead and press on with the Duchess. All right, everybody, welcome back to the action. So we are working on our bowsprit. That's what this drawing is here. I've gone ahead and prepped our three major pieces. What I want to point out is the main bowsprit part, the 6mm dowel. It's supposed to have this little square piece put on it. I ended up putting a chamfer on the front. See that? So it would fit. This is the 6mm dowel. It's correct, but the hole was so tight on this piece that, and there wasn't a lot of like real estate left over, so I went ahead and trimmed it. So anyway, these are prepped, these two pieces, before this goes from 3mm down to 2. That's it. They're the right shape. The issue that I'm having before I just go hog wild here and just attach all the little fittings and everything and then come back to rigging is that we have these semi-complicated rigging parts. And if we look at our book, right down here we have this detail for the bowsprit shrouds. And this is the sprit sail yard sling, which we don't have, but I think we have a bob stay and all this other stuff. And these are basically, your heavy lines are wrapped, right? And then wrapped around, they make this little circle. And in the drawings, you see right here, it makes this circle. It's like it's a continuous piece that wraps around, and then they've been served. That's the word I was looking for, a serving line. And they'll look really nice if I can mimic this that's in the book. I want to try and do it quote-unquote correctly. So my concern or thought is, because there's these stops right here, wooden block stops, what if I make these up first, and then I can slide them on the bow, or, over the bowsprit down to the point where they're supposed to be, and then that might be easier to tie together and assemble versus putting all of these pieces together and then sitting here and trying to figure out, how do I connect all of these things. I don't know how to connect all of these things easily. So, like this one in the back, this isn't a big deal. You can run this around and you do a little serving right there, and it's fine. And I've done these. That's not a problem. But this is a pretty complicated piece. So I just wanted to point those two things out. Put a chamfer here, did a little sanding. So this thing, just real quick, it's going to go together, like this. That's it. And then we've got a bunch of pieces of wood to get fixed on here. So I'm going to sort that out, and I'll come back to you with what my solution is. All right, we're back, and obviously I've assembled the bowsprit. So I figured out what was going on with the rigging, and I think that I can do it with everything assembled. So the bowsprit itself, there's a little notch up in the front here. It's just an assembly of the pieces, and they're glued on. It's not complicated. That's why I didn't show anything. So what's going to happen next is this is going to get covered in our varnish to seal it all up, and then we need to paint this thing black, and then we'll start rigging. All right, and speaking of rigging, what I figured out here, if you look carefully, while this shows all 4 dead eyes and then these 2 dead eyes facing you, if you look closely, it shows on the bottom that's just these 3 are together, and then you have this top one as a separate piece of rope. And same here, 2 different lines, and possibly even a spacer in between there, which is interesting looking. So, and then these pieces are all simple to throw together, except that you got to make little notes. Like this K, it says B. This line B is approximately 500 millimeters long, so we'll be adding that line and then just stowing it. So let's go ahead and throw some varnish on, and then paint up our bowsprit, and then we can start on this stuff. Alright, so this whole thing has been painted and has the varnish on it, and it's ready to go. So it's, it looks like that. It's nice. And real quick, we're going to do everything we can here today until the lights go off, because allegedly something's wrong with the power network in the area, and the power company has informed me that the electricity is supposed to be off most of today and right now. But it is not off right now, so we're going to do what we can. Back to this page in our book. So I was incorrect earlier. The spritsail sail sling yard, we are going to be using that. I have that. The forestay, the fore preventer stay. Pretty much everything on this page is going to happen. So I got to pick somewhere to start, right? All right, looking at the instructions with all the stuff that goes on here, we've got this cool like little frapping or wrapping that's got to go on here, and then I don't think we frap it, but we just wrap it around. You've got these blocks that need to be put into place. The hardest thing to do, I think, is going to be this whole arrangement with the dead eyes. And this one will be difficult to deal with because of its proximity to this upper post right here. And this one is probably going to be the easiest one to deal with, but also the most complicated because we have these 3 dead eyes, and then this one had the single larger dead eye that goes on top. So I'm going to just start there. We also, actually, the easiest one is probably right here. We should probably start with this one. And that's O. It's a 5mm dead eye. So what we're going to use is this 0.5mm line, and per our book, it should be, I just call it wrapped around, which is, was it sheathing? You know what I'm talking about. I'll get the word right. But we're going to get our machine out that I've made, and we'll just go ahead and demonstrate that real quick. Alright, here's our little seizing machine set up. I've got my line ran through here. It's secured just via some clamps on either end. And I've already started the line that we're going to wrap around here. So let's zoom in. Alright, so here's our line, and I've just started it with a simple overhead knot and then put a dot of CA glue on it. Note that my loose whip here is off to the left, and the part that I'm going to seize is to the right. You know, when you do your overhand, you can get it. This just helps start off going in the correct right direction better. And so we'll just get going like this and get it bunched up here. There we go. And now all we're going to do is spin this thing around until I get about, I don't know, about 3 or 4 inches worth of this material seized up like this. And then we'll secure it. I'm going to put a little dot of CA glue on it as we move along here, just to help keep the whole thing from unraveling on me. And we'll just work our way around until we've got this line all set up the way that we want it. And this sure beats, absolutely beats trying to wrap this line by hand running around. I think if I was going to do that, I would just omit it, and I would just use this line, this 0.5mm line, the way that it is, and I wouldn't bother with the little details that we see in the book. But I'm going to try to do this here. That's the idea. Alright, so we'll get this thing going. I'm going to figure out the best way to hold this and method. Probably off to the left here as it travels to the right. So it helps go connect to itself, and we'll just keep wrapping it around like so. Alright, we'll get back to you when that's done. Alright, I'm going to try and pan here so you can see this if it stays in focus, but this whole thing is alright, we're going to try and pan a little bit so you can see here, but this whole thing's seized up. I've got about 4 inches worth of this line whipped around itself, and it went really quick. And then I just secured the end with a knot. Of course, I don't think we're going to be able to focus on this right now from here, but anyway, we'll take this loose so that we can go ahead and use it. And I tied the end off and put a little dot of CA glue on this whole thing so that it doesn't come unraveled. Now we can start to monkey around with our dead eye. Okay, so we've started the process, and what I've done is just taken some CA glue and very carefully wrapped and glued our line into position. This plan is for this long end to wrap around the spar, come back up, and I'll trim it to meet right in here. And then we'll seize this whole thing so it will appear seamless all the way around. And while this is all glued together, I have a piece of 0.25 thin line that I've tied a simple overhead knot on. And the idea here is, let's just tighten this up as a little bit of an insurance policy. We'll wrap it all later so that it looks nice. I want that on there, and I'll put a little dab of tiny dab of CA glue just to keep it together. We'll wrap this when it's done. So now I'm going to carefully take it and wrap it around the spar. So the idea is we'll be like this. It's supposed to lean back too, I guess, a little bit. We'll take this long end. It'll go around the spar like this and meet up at the top, right? And obviously my fingers are all in the way and everything. I guess you could, and maybe I will here, put a little bit of CA glue on the bottom here just to help this thing stay in place till we can get our line tied up on it. So hopefully that all makes sense. I'm going to do that off camera here because it's just going to be a sea of my fingers. All right, pressing on. Okay, so here's our line seized on. I ended up crossing the two and then going around with a needle just underneath, like through there and around to get this shape. And I'm happy with it. That's going to work, and it even moves loose like the real thing. I wish this little eye could have been a little bit centered down better, but you know, it's just so hard to get these things perfect. So that's going to work. So that's the idea. That was a good practice run. Now we're just going to go ahead and move our way forward. We have the 3 dead eyes, and then the single one on top here, and then the next one here. And I'm going to do it the same way. I'll go ahead and I'll wrap the line around the dead eye. I'll seize it. I'll go around to the next one, wrap around the dead eye, seize it, go around until we have a nice continuous loop. Then I'll seize the 2 lines together, and we should be good to go. It's just going to be a little fiddly is all. All right, so that's what we'll do. Pressing on. All right, so this is the little arrangement of the other dead eyes. So this was tough. They are all loose, which is nice, so they'll end up, you know, laying naturally. The only one that didn't work out well is this one in the front. With the main 5-inch dead eye on top, or I'm sorry, 0.5 millimeter, 5 millimeter dead eye on the top. Straighten this out a little bit. My bottom one's not exactly centered. It's off to the side a little bit. And that was just part of trying to deal with wrapping the line around. But I was able to kind of do this. Let's see here if I change the angle. I turn this to the side. Hopefully you can kind of make out there's basically like a T arrangement right here in terms of I bound it together under the dead eye, and then part of the line goes this way, and then the line that wraps around goes across. And then what I did was used a needle to just wrap, you know, seize around the edge there of those 2 lines. So, okay, that takes care of that. So now, this is basically, you know, where we're at. We've got these parts all set up and ready to go. In the front here, we've got a couple of dead eyes that just get seized in position. They're little 1 millimeter dealies, or sorry, 0.5, what are they? 2 millimeter single dead eyes. Single blocks, sorry, I'm running out of steam today, guys. Single blocks, they get attached to these fittings here, and then we're done. Then this piece needs to get installed. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so here I've prepared one of the, I think it's a 1 millimeter dead eye block, sorry, 2 millimeter single block. Because these are supposed to be connected to these dead eyes and tight, I don't seize them in the traditional method. I just do a regular overhand knot, and that will let me do another overhand knot to tie it to its dead eye. Let me show you, or not dead eye, sorry, the eyelet. Let me show you. All right, so this is the eyelet I want to attach to. Hopefully you'll be able to see this. So all I'm going to do is pull one side through, and I just do another simple overhand knot, and this will allow me to pull this block right up next to the eyelet versus seizing it like you would with all the other stuff. So unhook here, and then like that. So now it's nice and tight up against that eye. And so we'll apply some CA glue so that it stays, and it'll pivot like it should naturally around that eyelet as it needs to, and we'll be good to go. So let me trim that. I'll put the other one on, and then we'll do this last one. All right, for our final block, I've connected the strand here, the line that we're going to use to attach the little block and then tie it to the eyelet. But it's supposed to have 500 millimeters approximately of natural thread attached to the bottom of it. And so what I do is, you can do this however you want. I guess the proper way would be to loop it and seize it, but I've opted to just do a clove hitch instead, and then touch it with a little bit of CA glue. All right, so that's set up in the center here. So we'll just put a little bit of CA glue on this knot. So it's ready to go. We'll use this end. And then right here is where we'll take our little block, and I'll just stick it right in the middle there. Try and do this so you can see, and tie my little overhand knot. Like that, so that that line's coming out of the bottom, and then we'll just tie it to where it needs to go, just like I did on the other one. So this block's ready to go. We'll just do a simple overhand knot. Get snug. This thing's supposed to go towards the bow. A little CA glue. And then we'll trim the ends off. And then since this extra 500 some millimeters worth of tan line, I'll coil it up and store it until we're ready to secure it where it needs to go in place. Alright, last but not least, there's a line that gets wrapped around this part, this main beam, and then the forward part of the bowsprit here. And so we're going to do an actual seize here. And so what I've done is I've created, oh man, I hope you could see this. It's all black on black here. I have a line that's in a loop, okay? It comes up and it makes a loop like this, and I've taped it into position. So now what we'll do here is I will start on the back, and I'm going to try and do this here on the camera. And we're going to wrap this around, and I got to get around all the stuff that I've made here. Ideally keep your lines straight. and we're going to do a little seize here. And the reason for this loop is that when I'm done with this loose end, once you get it tight, once you get the first one tight, it's pretty easy to keep going here. I'll pull this loose end through the loop that I've made. We'll pull that back through, and then our line will disappear on itself. So let me create a little more real estate down here. I'd like to do several passes if I can here, and I want to keep this line that we're going to pull through up towards the back of the post here, because if it slides around too much, it won't work. Alright, get my tape out of the way, and we'll resume going around. That's probably could do maybe one more pass here, like this. Okay, now we're going to take this loose end. Sorry if that was out of focus, and we're going to pass it through here. Alright, and then this end pulls on that loop. And if you give it enough of a tug and it's just loose enough, it will pull that line under the rope that you've just wrapped around here, and it will collapse on itself tightly, and that's how it will stay in position. I'm going to help it out here. And you can pull the other way and tighten things. Alright, we'll stop right there for a second. So the idea is now if I flip this over, it's like this one hopped over itself. So we want all of this line to be bunched up nice and pretty like this. That's the idea. And so that when you're done, it looks all nice and seized together here. So let me clean that up, and then I know this is hard to show here because it's all black rope on black paint. But that's the idea, like that. That's what we're going for. Let me clean this up. Alright, this is what I should have been doing all along. A black background with black paint with black line makes you see everything. And I do apologize that I hadn't figured this out earlier in the video. But this is what I was talking about. This line, see how it's seized underneath there? I cut the ends off and it's wrapped around nicely here. And then that's it. We've got this is just kind of looks like a little spaghetti mess of dead eyes right here, but they will all be going the right way once we hook everything else up. And then this is our excess line that we have down here, and our little dead eye that we had start off at the beginning with our little practice. So this point we've done everything in the instructions. I think that the way that we should. There is a spritz yard that hangs off of here somewhere, and it might be easier to connect the line now rather than later, but that's not what the instructions say to do, and I'm not sure if it will be better later. So this is kind of like our practice run here. I'm going to stick it back in my little holder that I've got. You also, if you recall from the instructions, are supposed to prepare all of the fittings and dead eyes and blocks onto your 3 masts. I'm not going to take you through all that. I've already done it. Let's go ahead and grab them and take a look. Alright, this is our mizzen mast. We've got our little blocks seized up at the top. All of our little dead eyes are in. I have to touch up the paint on the bottom of these little pieces here, but otherwise we're set. Same thing here. You've got, I don't remember how many millimeters of extra line that is seized onto this block that loops around the top right up in here on our platform, and we got our blocks ready to go. This is the main mast. The main mast is actually very uncomplicated, except for up on top here you have these 5mm single blocks attached to the 2mm ones. I probably should have seized these lines all the way around, but I didn't. Then you've got your double blocks hanging down here from this loop on the inside. See that I've seized, and it hangs off of there like that, and then the other one's over here. There you go. You can see that's hanging down. And then the seizing that I just demonstrated, that's what you do to get these wrappings around your mast. You just go ahead and on the back here you can see there's a little bit of a wiggle overlap, and that's from where it's pulled in underneath itself. And then you get this nice wrapped look. And then this, I think, is our quarter mast. This is the one in the front. Same thing. Your blocks and everything ready to go, and I gotta monkey with this. These have been sitting for a while, pulled together. This one I looped around on the bottom, and I seized it to itself, making a little loop so it pulls tight. Yeah, some of this I was making up as I went because I forgot about my book that tells you how to do all of this stuff. So they're set. Now I believe what we do is we set them in on the ship. Let's do that. Okay, so here we are. I've just set the masts and the bowsprit into position. So this is our first look at it. It's got a little bit of work here. They need to be glued, and some tuning up needs to be done, just some little things. The instructions tell you to go ahead and install the main mast first, glue it in position, check for plumb, make sure it's straight up and down, all those good things. And then as a reference to the main mast, you go ahead and install the other ones. I think I've mentioned previously, these angles are all correct. This one, main mast leans back quite a bit. The foremast is straight up and down, and your mizzen mast leans back quite a bit. Coincidentally, the platforms are all, for the crow's nest, we'll call them for now, they're all level, so they're all at the right angle. And then our bowsprit sits up in the front, and we'll get seized down into position, and yeah, we'll be able to start rocking and rolling here. So I need to take a good look at the instructions with what is the next thing to do, because it says basically do this. We get to install our anchor chain. It's not even a chain, the rope, the heavy line for the anchor. And that, I'm glad I purchased the ropes of scale line for. It's much higher quality than the big kit piece that looks kind of like a piece of yarn for some reason. That's an upgrade that I do recommend for sure. Then you have all of your yard arms that need to be built up and then attached. What I'm trying to decide is, do I build up the yard arms and attach them? Or do I go ahead and, if you look at the drawings, they begin to systematically show you how to rig this ship up. I think that might be the way to go first, because there's a lot of lines that run in the middle of everything, and you don't want to be reaching around trying to monkey with that. In the previous builds, I've actually made special tools that I could reach in and hook and push and pull and tie knots, because when I'd added the rat lines and everything, I couldn't reach around inside to get to the things in the middle. So I think that's what we'll do. So anyway, that's the ship for now. I hope that this episode was worthwhile and helpful, and we definitely have a new look to everything, and I think it's pretty awesome. This is changing things quite a bit. It's a gorgeous looking ship. It has really nice lines. I think the angles are good. So yeah. All right. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. We'll see you in the next one. Press on.